Mark the Chicken. Lovel was a figure both feared and respected in Northern Ireland's underworld. Known for his quiet demeanor and deep loyalty to his family, he was devoted to his elderly mother, for whom he was the sole caregiver. But behind this family man facade lay a life entangled in Northern Ireland's brutal drug wars, a life marked by high-stakes rivalries, ruthless enemies, and a reputation that would ultimately seal his fate. For over 30 years, Lovel moved through the criminal circles of Northern Ireland with increasing notoriety. His infamy began around Christmas decades earlier when he and two accomplices targeted the home of an elderly man in Cummer, County Down. They didn't just steal cash, they also grabbed wrapped Christmas gifts, perhaps thinking they'd found some easy bonuses for their haul. But this carelessness would come back to haunt them. Some of those stolen presents were later traced back to one of his associates' homes, a costly error that exposed them to law enforcement and marked the beginning of Lovel's reputation in the Irish crime world. One of Lovel's partners in this raid was Paul "Bull" Downey, a man who would later climb the ranks of the drug trade only to meet a brutal end at the hands of the IRA. Downey had built connections on both sides of the Irish border, becoming a significant player in the illegal drug market. But those connections didn't protect him when his activities crossed an invisible line with the IRA. One night, Downey was ambushed and killed in the car park of Newry's Canal Court Hotel, a reminder to all that the IRA held zero tolerance for those who threatened their influence. The message sent shockwaves through the underworld, a chilling warning to anyone who might cross them. This episode cemented Lovel's association with high-risk players in Ireland's criminal scene and marked his connection to the ruthless power struggles unfolding in the region's drug trade. Lovel's suspected involvement in drug operations meant he was walking a dangerous line in Northern Ireland's most volatile territories, particularly in the so-called drugs corridor around Newry and Dundalk. The corridor's strategic position on the Irish border made it prime real estate for smuggling and distribution, a status that attracted fierce competition from rival gangs on both sides. One of these rival groups, operating out of Dundalk across the border, had a particularly brutal reputation. Known for their aggression, this gang made Lovel a target, reportedly aligning his death with a carefully orchestrated plan to eliminate him. Local criminal figures like the Coke King and the Chocolate, notorious for their roles in the regional drug trade, were part of the wider conflict, adding fuel to a volatile situation that often exploded in public violence. Ambushes, shootings, and displays of dominance had become common in Newry as various gangs jostled for control over the profitable drug market, with some even holding ties to international crime syndicates. As foreign crime groups attempted to make inroads into this tense scene, the region's delicate balance of power began to fracture. For a man like Lovel, aligning himself with certain groups offered both protection and risk. The region's drug wars were anything but stable, and feuds over drug debts or shifting alliances could spark deadly violence without warning. Despite the dangers, Lovel continued to be linked with influential players in the Newry underworld. One such association reportedly placed him in direct opposition to other local crime leaders, who saw him as a threat in an already fraught environment. Amid escalating turf wars, even the smallest signs of disloyalty or misalignment could mean a swift and brutal end. In a clandestine meeting near the border, key players in the region's drug trade convened to discuss how they would handle Lovel's continued presence and influence. During this gathering, a plot to eliminate Lovel took shape. His life had been deemed expendable, and his days were now numbered. Around this time, Lovel's 36-year-old son, Ebony Hughes, narrowly escaped his own assassination attempt in Newry town center, bolting through the Abbey yard to safety. These incidents illustrated the perilous nature of life within the gang-dominated world of Newry and Dundalk. On December 1, 2022, Lovel went about his usual routine, caring for his mother in Mayobridge before heading back to Newry. Unbeknownst to him, he was being followed. A black Mercedes with fake Northern Ireland plates was tailing him with chilling precision. The car, stolen in Dublin months prior, had been repurposed for this very job, equipped to blend in while its occupants prepared to carry out their deadly mission. CCTV footage later revealed the extent of this shadowing, showing the Mercedes trailing Lovel's every move from as early as 5:11 p.m. The car kept its distance just enough to remain unnoticed. As Lovel made his stops, the vehicle would loop around, ensuring that no one else was following or watching them. Every maneuver was deliberate, each one signaling a ruthless dedication to their target. Detective Chief Inspector Anthony Kelly later described the pursuit as relentless, noting how Lovel's killers went to extraordinary lengths in their planning. The routine that Lovel had become so accustomed to, the very one that allowed him to balance his criminal dealings with his family commitments, had made him predictable, and it was this predictability that ultimately led him into a meticulously crafted trap. That evening, as Lovel pulled into his driveway in Ardcarn Park, he had no idea his killers were lying in wait. Concealed by the shadows of early winter darkness, the assailants saw their moment. The black Mercedes was parked strategically nearby. In seconds, they descended upon him, unleashing a ruthless barrage of gunfire. Up to 20 shots were fired, piercing the car windows and striking Lovel repeatedly as he sat, defenseless and unprepared. Neighbors, hearing the unmistakable blasts, rushed outside to find Lovel slumped in his car, mortally wounded. The gunman, already gone, had vanished into the night, leaving behind a scene of horror. According to police, the ambush had been executed with military precision, leaving Lovel with no chance of survival. It wasn't just a killing. It was a message to anyone caught in Newry's gang conflicts, a brutal reminder of the lengths to which these groups would go to eliminate their rivals. The black Mercedes followed a prearranged escape route, heading south toward Dundalk, where it was later found burned out, a common practice in Gangland, hits designed to erase any evidence that might tie them to the crime. This was no hurried escape. Every step of this plan had been meticulously designed, from the timing of the ambush to the clean getaway, revealing a well-organized and practiced operation. Lovel's killers were professionals, and their actions showed it. The attack left law enforcement scrambling. The Police Service of Northern Ireland launched a major investigation, mobilizing resources and conducting thorough searches. Yet the cross-border element of the crime added complications. The killers had fled into the Republic, where Northern Irish police had limited jurisdiction. This hindered efforts to gather evidence or intercept suspects in the immediate aftermath, making the case even more challenging. In the days following the shooting, the Police Service of Northern Ireland made repeated public appeals for information. Surveillance footage showing the black Mercedes trailing Lovel was released, and the authorities urged anyone with additional footage or knowledge to come forward. By mid-December, there had been a breakthrough. Several arrests were made in Newry, including a 42-year-old woman and a 49-year-old man. Yet, despite these leads, no formal charges were immediately filed. Detective Chief Inspector John Caldwell described Lovel's killing as a particularly ruthless execution. The brazenness of the ambush in a residential area underscored the violence these gangs were willing to unleash. The authorities suspected Lovel's murder was linked to the ongoing cross-border drug feud, suggesting an organized network was behind the hit. However, the murder weapons used to kill him were never found. Following Gangland protocol, the firearms were likely destroyed to prevent any evidence from linking the killers to the scene. This lack of physical evidence added to the challenges facing investigators. In the wake of Lovel's death, a wall of silence descended over Newry. The community, gripped by fear, was reluctant to come forward with information. Northern Ireland's criminal underworld operates under a strict, unspoken code where speaking to authorities is seen as betrayal, one often punished with violence. Despite the police appeals and a reward of up to £20,000 from Crime Stoppers, few were willing to risk the consequences of breaking this code. Mark Lovel's murder sent shockwaves through Newry, a stark reminder of the brutality lying just beneath the surface of the city's streets. The scorched getaway car, the bullet-riddled vehicle left in a quiet neighborhood, and the silence surrounding the investigation all painted a grim picture of gangland life in Northern Ireland. For those who knew him, Lovel's death was more than just another crime story. It was a warning that in Newry's underworld, The rules are cold and unforgiving, and loyalty can be a death sentence.